What's up, guys? This is Eric, Underdogs of Addiction. Today's podcast is we're going to speak about a lot of topics, but first, I just wanted to say, please check out my last podcast episode when I had a special guest, CG Kid, really famous, popular YouTube influencer with over 400,000 subscribers, just about between both of his channels. Someone I've been following for a long time, and he's really a pioneer in addiction education on YouTube. We had a very interesting conversation. It's always nice when you could sit down with somebody and there's just a flow, and it almost feels therapeutic when you're talking because we had a lot in common and we were able to touch on a lot of different subjects that I believe are going to help a lot of people. So that link will be in the pinned comment. Um, Yeah, so today's video, I'm going to talk on a bunch of different subjects. Something that's been on my mind, like I've kind of just like went down a rabbit hole this week, and I've been watching a lot of like videos about DUI crashes. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I don't think we understand like the impact of driving under the influence and like what what that can do to your community, to other human beings, to families, to friends, to yourself, to the world. I'm gonna try to bring in some clips of some videos that I watched that really shook me, especially sitting back now and thinking about my time with drinking. I was a binge drinker, and before I got into cocaine, I used to I used to like go to clubs. Like, let's say this started when I was probably about 24, and I would like go to clubs and I would get really, really drunk off like AMFs and Long Islands, and I thought I was having a good time. And those, if you know about drinking, those nothing good happens when you drink those kinds of drinks. And there was just many times where I did all kinds of crazy stuff. Let me explain. Um, I mean, I would leave the club. It's almost sad thinking about it. And I would drive to my apartment and I would pack up all my clothes and like, fuck this town. I'm from Olympia, Washington. I love Olympia, Washington, but for some reason I went through a phase where I just wanted to leave, and it was before I dealt with my inner turmoil inside, and I thought that like if I ran away from everything, that everything would be better. And so I had this like weird time in my life where I would like get really drunk at a club, dance with a bunch of girls, not take any girls home because I was too fucked up. Get in my car, like, what am I thinking? And drive home to my apartment. Luckily, I mean, somehow I never hurt anybody and never hurt myself. That's God's grace. I mean, God really looked out for me because Lord knows, I mean, I'll get into those stories, but like I would pack my stuff and like end up driving to like want to drive to LA, and I'd make it like halfway to like not halfway, but like a quarter of the way to like Portland, Oregon, wake up, come to and some rinky dink hotel. This happened to me a couple times. I had another occasion when I was 26 when I got really drunk, and I was pissed off at my friend because he lived in Florida, and he was telling me, he kept saying that, oh, you're never gonna come, you're never gonna come. So I got drunk and thought it would be a good idea to drive to the airport. Mind you, I didn't even remember where I parked my car. I like luckily took a photo, and I was like in Florida in the next 7 hours. And I like came to in this Atlanta airport, and I was like, what the fuck, bro? Like, what are you doing here? Like, it was like some real hangover movie shit with Zach Galifianakis or whatever his name is, Bradley Cooper and Mr. Chow. Like, that's when I first started realizing, like, shit. Like, for some people, this shit it is funny. Um, Sorry guys, and it makes for good conversation now, but like it was pretty wild shit, to get drunk and to just end up in a hole like on the other side of the United States, you know. Luckily, I had the money to fly and get back home as well. Actually had a good time in Florida, so whatever. But you know, back to the conversation of like drinking and driving. I did stuff like that. I would, try to make these long distance drives. Um, there was one time when I left the club. There was one time when I left the club and I I ended up just driving and I was so drunk I didn't even know where I was going. Like for real, like when I think back to it, like I just remember this blur. Some girl had left like a vape in my car. I don't even remember what she looked like. I dropped her off. I stopped at the corner store and got some monsters and like it was just kind of crazy to think that was like the origins of my addiction. Um, and I would do stuff like this and I could have easily hit someone head on, been hit. Um, Anything could have happened. I don't know why I'm still here. And like um, I remember one time I like woke up and I was like in an at an ocean. Like I live in Washington, so we're on the coast, and I ended up on the coast, like a 2 hour drive from where I live. Um, it was just strange, you know, and like a lot of us get lucky and we never harm anyone from drinking and driving. The only infraction I ever had is I got a DUI, but that wasn't even nothing happened. I got pulled over in a Taco Bell and ended up getting a DUI, and that experience was wild. You know, like I'm had some success on YouTube, and I had a little bit of money and bought somewhat of a nice little car, and I was just full of ego, and I ended up. One of my friends who was supposed to DD my car ended up getting drunk himself, and he ended up like walking home from the club, which is like a 2 hour walk. I don't even remember, like pretty wild shit. And don't drink Long Island's and stuff like that. That's nothing good happened from drinking like that back when I was younger. And I decided to get in my car and drive. And I go like 100 miles an hour. I slowed. I just wanted to test because I had bought like a kind of fast car, and I tested it. Maybe not 100. I maybe went like 80. Then I slowed down and like, but I was in the car driving, and I just knew I was like, dude, you're lucky if you make it home, but like you should not be behind a wheel. You know, and when we're younger, we're so immature, and if we haven't experienced the pain or have been affected by some like in our family, I never saw any fatalities from DUIs or been around it, so I don't think they really promote it well enough to let kids know. Like you don't see them posting these fatalities as much like all over the news and social media. You might hear it on YouTube, but like it's not promoted enough because of course the alcohol companies and the bars and the clubs don't want that being promoted because that's their business. It's a really double-edged sword there. Because alcohol makes a ton of money yet it kills. It's like one of the leading killers in the world. And I ended up getting pulled over, like 6 or 7 cops swarmed the car, and like yeah, I was like laughing because I was drunk, but then I got emotional because I always had this weird thing in me of like a fantasy of getting arrested. You're gonna laugh, but I grew up watching my father get arrested. I've probably seen my dad get arrested over 20 times from the age of 4 um, until I was like 11 years old. And so it does something to you in a weird way, is that, you know, you're a kid, you want to look up to your father. All I ever saw was my dad being arrested. And so like I thought it was cool or something. I don't know. I think there was something inside of me that like thought it was cool to be a criminal or to get in trouble. So like at first I was like, wow, this is what it's like to be arrested. I know that sounds retarded, but I'm also drunk as fuck. And I get to the police station, and luckily, like one of the cops knew me because at the time I was a regular at this gym, and this gym was like supported a lot of local cops and firefighters and vets and stuff. And so I made a lot of connections in the city, and they were cool to me. They dropped me off at home, um, and that was that. And ever since then, I've never drove drunk. There was a few times where I've was a little tipsy, but I had to drive because the person who was our DD ended up getting drunk. So there's dumb situations like that, but I've never driven like intoxicated like that. Again, you know, the most I've driven is if I had like a couple beers, and even then I didn't even like doing that. Um, for the most part, it was just no. Even when I got super fucked up and could have because of what I went through, I just was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. But there was also another instance when I was around that age group too. The first real serious incidents I had with um, driving drunk is same scenario. Um, 23 years old. I was 22 years old and I didn't drink for 2 years or something like that after this incident. Me and a friend from the gym, we find like $200 at the bar on the ground. I've never drank in AMFs or Long Island's. Here we go again with the Long Island's and AMFs. And introduces me to him. Now this person has been a troublemaker. He knows what he's getting into. Um, we party our asses off. It's fun at first. I'm mingling with a bunch of girls and thinking life's great. And then the come down from the alcohol and all the sugar and whatever, the spirits. And next thing you know, I'm with a friend that likes to fight, and we're walking around trying to start fights. Now, even though that wasn't in my heart, like I'm not the dude to just start fights. I wanted to be cool. This was an older friend of mine, and we ended up getting a fight with these people who like bouncers and DJs from the club because I was hooking up with a girl that was dating one of the DJs and I didn't know, and like I didn't really care, but I was like, oh, maybe okay, we could start something with these guys. Maybe they'll be want to fight me. But the other guy was didn't want to fight, and then they didn't know how crazy my friend was, and they said something to him, and then he knocked one of the dudes out, and then a couple of his friends attacked my friend, and then I knocked down one of the dudes. And so pretty much it was like there was like five of them and two of us, but like only three of them were willing to fight, or maybe more, but they couldn't, like whatever. We got the better of them, and so they called the cops. So we rushed into our car, and uh, we were flying down the road, and we're both just way too drunk, and we crash. I see the cops like probably 200 yards away, and I'm just like, fuck, I fucked up. Like I fucked up. And we we're going, and I'm telling my homie because he's like a daredevil type of guy, like no fear when it comes to this kind of shit. And I was like, bro, slow down, slow down. And we're wrapping around this turn. We're going about 60, and he loses control of the car. And at that moment, I was like, fuck, man, like, is this how I'm gonna die? Like, this is how I'm gonna die? And I just told myself, I said, all right, man, like whatever happens, I'm gonna have to live with it. And somehow the car wraps around a tree. I just remember he did try to slow down. Like, thankfully, if we didn't slow down, I mean, no doubt I would have been dead. Like, if we were going 100 miles an hour, like, it wouldn't have ended well. But he had slowed down to like 60 to take this turn, and the trunk of the car wrapped around the tree. It was about, I would say, a couple feet away from hitting me. So I lucked out. Like, it wrapped the back end of the car wrapped into a tree, but it didn't hit me. My friend's head went through his driver's side windshield, and he was gushing blood like out of a horror scene. But luckily, he was okay despite that. And like we got out of the car and we hid, and I'm not gonna tell too much more of the story just for legal reasons, but um, we got extremely lucky, and no charges were filed, and no one was seriously injured. And so I've had some serious run-ins myself with drinking and driving, and I'm ashamed of those times. And I'm watching these stories on YouTube of these these kids. I watched a story the other day of a lot of you guys probably know about it. This teenage girl who got high on a Oxycontin and drunk, and she drove into an embankment, like over a bridge into a creek. Car flipped upside down. She got out of the car. Her friend was still alive. She left her friend there, and then her friend later like drowned and died of her injuries. And this girl just got sentenced to, I think, like 20 years to life. And obviously she shouldn't have been drinking and driving, but the fucked up part of that was her friend should be alive, and she just left her friend there to drown and die. Nobody will ever know what was going through her mind. Maybe she was so out of it from her Xanax and alcohol, but if she was conscious enough to get herself out of the car and apparently like she hitched a ride from a stranger, then went back to school or went back to normal living the next day, and they didn't even know that someone was in the car until obviously they pulled it out. Uh, so you hear stories like that. I've seen videos of these guys who actually, they're getting detained and they just realize that they're getting processed at a police station and they just realize that they killed someone and they're just breaking down. And imagine like I've known in my head I've had those nightmare scenarios like nightmares where I did something like that and I woke up and I'm like, fuck, thank God I didn't do it. It's pretty wild to see someone actually do it and their reaction. And I know myself, I know I care a lot about people, but the issue sometimes is we don't care about ourselves. And when you start drinking, maybe you're going through some type of rough scenario in life. You're drinking to bury your own pain, but then you're losing your rationality and inability to think clearly. And so you decide to get behind a wheel, not because you want to hurt somebody. 99% of the times, people who get those manslaughter charges for DUI, they're good people. They're just fucked up and they make a bad choice and then they ruin their lives. And not even just the main thing is they ruin someone else's life. They kill an innocent person. They kill, I heard a story of a dude hitting a car head on that killed a lady who was pregnant with twins. Like the worst scenarios you can imagine happen. It's a fucking nightmare. And yeah, we gotta hold the people accountable who drink. But what about holding accountable, you know, the the government? Why don't we hold accountable our society, the advertising? Why aren't we? Because it doesn't make any money. There's a lot of weird things we could go into if we're talking about that, but at the end of the day, they do promote DUI awareness, like the cops do try to, but at the end of the day, they're kind of in a weird situation because alcohol makes a lot of money and alcohol is served everywhere. And if you're at a casino, at a bar, at a club, the main thing they want to sell you is alcohol is because that's how they make their money. So we have to have some new standard. Like these bars and clubs have to enforce some type of regulations even to another level than they are doing. Like I used to go to a certain bar and I mean like, bro, like 80% of the people there drove home drunk every night. Um, and so it's like th there needs to be some type of accountability for these bars and these clubs of maintaining people driving. And you could say, oh no, it's a human being's responsibility. Yes, I agree, but let's just be honest. People go to the bar and they're like, oh, I'm just gonna have a couple of drinks, and they end up staying all night, and just a lot of bad things happen. Of course, there's Uber and all these things, and there's no excuse. I used to party like a madman, and I took Ubers everywhere. And so there is no excuse for us to drive, but not everyone has had the experiences that I've had and seen like the destruction of driving drunk. I know people that are like will tell me who are like, "Oh man, I'm 50 years old and I've never got a DUI." And I'm like, "Cool, so like that's cool for you to keep fucking drinking and driving and eventually fuck your life up." All right, and so that's just kind of my thoughts on that, guys. I wanted to talk about that because I don't feel like people talk about that enough. So, um, another thing I wanted to talk about is like going through life, going through recovery. It's a really interesting situation. Like some of you guys know my story. I spent like the last 17, 18 months in recovery. I checked myself into treatment September 4th is when I got sober. So September 12th, 2022 is when I left the treatment in Portland. And then I have a video talking more about that. I don't really want to get into my treatment experience, but it's funny, like being on the other side now. My brain was so wired into like how my brain was so wired into I go through a trauma, a trigger. A girl breaks up with me, cheats on me, or I screw a girl over, and I feel bad, and I want her back, or I lose a job, or my music career and marketing is not making enough money, so I'm worried about paying my bills, or I can't fix my car, or I totaled my car going to get drugs, like, or this family member died, like all these different triggers. And my automatic switch from like 24 years old until I was 32 when I went to treatment was, and it got worse and worse as I introduced cocaine and started partying more, is that instead of sitting and dealing with the triggers like I do now, it was like this automatic system in my brain of use, escape. And obviously, we all know that gets us nowhere. And it's been cool to like be in recovery 17 months and rebuild those neural pathways. And like I'm sitting here in my apartment today. 6 months ago, when I came home, I was homeless. And for the last 16 months, I mean, for the last 11 months, I say for 11 months, I was living in sober living. So I wasn't homeless, but I didn't have my own home. And it's crazy now to sit here and like I got certified as a peer counselor in the state of Washington. So working with kids in addiction, and I'm just getting started with that, and I'm super stoked. And just sitting here making these YouTube videos and having my job in my apartment and like having my life back to the standard that I wanted it to be for so long, and I lost my way. Um, it's interesting now to like sit here and like I've had triggers. I mean, I've had triggers 10 out of 10 since I've been sober, especially in these last 4 months. And like I don't go right to the drinking anymore because I just play the tape back and I think about everything that I went through and all of the stuff that I've talked about. And I've just, it's true what they say in treatment. It's like the more you want to retrain your brain. When I was at Treehouse, we went and did things sober. We built all these sober memories. So now, like, I have this new database in my brain that's like, alcohol doesn't equal fun, it equals pain. Sobriety equals fun, and success and positivity. And it's kind of like a retraining your neural pathways. And like, it's just cool to be in a place now where it's like triggers, that used to just take me out, they don't take me out anymore. And that just gives me so much more confidence to share my story that may help other people to know that like I was as bad as it can get. I felt like I wanted to kill myself. I lost everything. I was emotionally f- drained and bankrupt, whatever you want to say. Like I was down as you could be. And even then, what helped me get out of that is just still finding some type of gratitude. Because regardless of how far down I was, there's people struggling worse. There's someone out there who's paraplegic. There was actually a guy who I follow on internet named Zach. I forget his last name. He lost his ability to walk, and I think he has use of his arms and his like head, but not his lower body. It might even be worse. I'm not sure. But the dude just got his master's degree. He has a beautiful wife, and he's so positive. And like, I had to follow people like that. Like it's crazy. Like following people like that, or Steve Gleason from New Orleans Saints. Following him, like I drew inspiration from guys like that when I was at my worst, realizing that someone had it worse. Someone was suffering more than me, and to find that it gets me emotional thinking about it like that you know you got to find gratitude even when you're going through hell, because these guys who have crazy impairments in their body, paraplegic, um, Steve Gleason is like completely like I think he may have use of his hands, like he has I think he has ALS, yeah. So like he lost complete, like it's really bad, and he's still going and he's writing books. And you got to find your blessings. And even if you ever find yourself in a situation that's debilitating like they're in, you still got to dig deep. And it's just that mentality of no excuses, and just never giving up. And I just wanted to share that today because like I've just felt blessed. And I know this is just the beginning, but like I went through some real hell with this addiction to alcohol and cocaine. And um, at the root of it was a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms, a lot of distortions in my mind, a lot of biological and spiritual imbalances. And to finally like get my balance back, it's just crazy, man. Like I have a photo I'm looking at of one of my homies, and well, not my homies, one of my counselors in treatment from Treehouse, my friend. I call him a friend, Brian. He he told me, Zarek, I wanted to leave treatment the first week I got there, and he was like, bro, he was like, he was like, dude, like, I'm telling you, bro, if you stick this out, like he goes, the reason I love this job is to see where it gets me emotional thinking about it too, man. He's like, because to see where they're gonna be in a year. And when he told me that, I was like, I didn't know how to believe in it. I mean, I just came there. I was selling drugs. I lost everything. I had no self-worth. I was in the worst shape of my life. My ex, me and her broke up. She left me for starting a new family. I lost my apartment. I totaled my nice car. God stripped everything away from me that I thought was me just to show me that like he still loves me and people still care about me and I still have value. And like my friend Brian said, now 17 months later, to see where my life is, I'm sitting here shooting a podcast. Like this has been a dream of mine to start this channel, Underdogs of Addiction. I'm sitting in a nice apartment. I'm healthy. I have a great job. I got family and friends. I got people to care about me, man. Like God is good. God is good. And man, man, it chokes me up thinking about it, you know. Anybody out there watching this, like if you're going through it, like I mean, things do get better. They do get better if you just hang in there and listen to your inner intuition, your guidance with you and God, because that will never lie to you. That'll get you through it. And you may not be happy with the time, um, or when it happens or where it happens, what you have to do, but I'm telling you, it is worth it. And drifting into that, you know, if we're gonna talk about God, you know, I've had up and down relationship with God because I grew up, my family was in and out of church. My brother was very into Christianity for a long time. My sister and her husband work in the church. My sister actually is a clothing designer for a huge, like big Christian brand or whatever. And so God has always been around, and I've always believed in God. I've always believed in Source, but throughout my 20s, I studied a lot of like um, Taoism, the Tao Te Ching, and like mainly just listening to like Wayne Dyer's The Tao Wisdom and Eckhart Tolle and Buddhism, and I really got into that. So like I never disconnected from Source or disconnected from belief in God. But I believe all these different religions, Buddha, Jesus, I do believe they all existed, and they're all just man-made or man ways of or forms of um, teaching like trying to connect us to God consciousness and what God really is. Each religion and each I'm not the most educated and all that stuff, so I'm not even going to talk about that. But I do believe these men lived and they had some type of divine connection, um, and that's as far as I'll go on it. But all I know is that when I was like in the depths of my addiction, all I had was God and myself at the end. Like I had estranged myself from my family, my friends. Like my life was in the gutter, and the only person that could bring me out was my intuition, my inner self, and God. And I dialogued with God one night, and I broke down to my knees and I started crying in tears of joy because something in my intuition told me that this was going to be over. Like it was like a 2 year period of me just going through hell, like post COVID, and like before that, I kind of had my life together for a good amount of years. Even though I still partied, it was my life was still together. I was still doing pretty well, but eventually everything caught up to me, and I just was in the depths of hell, and I was just staying up and doing cocaine and ordering tequila bottles from DoorDash and just smoking cigarettes and just destroying myself. And I just wanted the pain to end. I was tired of hurting, and I just had this intuition one day. You can call it God or Source, Jesus, maybe it was Buddha. I don't know. I don't fucking know who it was. But I felt that, and it told me that, hey, it's going to be over soon. It's still going to be a long road, which it has been the last 2 years, but you're going to be okay. And you know, it gets me emotional thinking about it because I sit here today and like my life is completely 360 degrees different, man. And I'm crying tears of joy because, man, like my friend Jeremy says, man, you got to go through it to get through it, you know? I mean, you got to go through it to get to it, man. And there's been little people, man, little different people who've came into my life. And sometimes I believe angels, what an angel really is God's angels are humans. children, babies, dogs, animals. Angels have saved me and came to me in variations of different people in my community, wherever I was living in Idaho, Olympia, Washington, Portland, Oregon, the last few years. Angels came down for me, whatever you want to call them, and the help and blessings I got from strangers changed my life, and the wisdom and the things. And that's just what I want to say, and like the reason I started this channel is obviously it's not for money. Like I can't even monetize my videos probably because of what I talk about. And so I really had to ask myself, why am I doing this? Because I spent 15 years in the music industry chasing being famous because I thought being famous would make me feel good. Love music, and I love that part of it, but I also had a part of me that never felt seen or heard, from my old childhood trauma, and I realized that that was not going to fulfill me, and that career is I'm retired from music right now, and my focus is on addiction education and treatment and what I'm doing right now, and like, whoops, I I didn't want to start this YouTube and this page just to like chase another check or just to like become famous. I wanted to make this channel to connect with anybody who's in my shoes, who's in recovery, who's went to treatment, people who are, on their own different path. I'm not saying my path was the path for everybody, but I just wanted to make this channel to like have a place where people don't have to feel shamed or stigma or feel bad for what they're going through. And it shows, I've had so many people comment and tell me how the videos have helped them, reach out to me personally on Facebook, and talk to me, a lot of different kinds, all kinds of different individuals, and I'm grateful for all of everybody that reaches out. And I just want this to be a community for people to not feel ashamed and to maybe take something from my story and from the people that I bring on the show, and on your journey, just like others did for me. Um, and that's the purpose of this channel, is just to connect. Like, Denzel Washington said something smart. He's like, when you're on this earth, give your gift. When you're on this earth, give your gift because you can't take it with you. Because you can't take it with you. And I like little stuff like that. I even like what Kobe Bryant said when he said something like, he goes, get up every day and try to win. He goes, the thing is, everyone who's won also loses a lot. He goes, you can do everything right and you might lose that day, but you still have tomorrow to get up and win. And it's such a great mentality. It's crazy the time we live in where we get all this great insight from all these super successful individuals. And rest in peace, Kobe. And he left a lot of wisdom behind, man. And he's a great example. Is like he did it all, and he died young, but like that man lived and he left his imprint. And regardless of how long or how short we live, we need to give everything we have now, um, and because like we can't take any of this with us, whether we accumulate money, um, whatever we do, we can't take it with us. And for so many years, I was so obsessed with like getting rich and having all this stuff, and realizing that, man, like J. Cole said, love yours. Like I take a lot of wisdom from guys like him who he's like he goes, you made a lot. He goes, the good news is you came a long way. The bad news is you went the wrong way. And it's like, um, I started to realize the most important things in life is relationships with friends and family and being of service and giving back, because losing everything like I did and losing my ego and like having to fall in love with my raw self, my beaten down self, it really changed me. And I realized who's important and what's important in my life. And I had to ask myself, how do I want to leave this earth? And it doesn't matter. Deion Sanders said something smart on his Instagram the other day. He said, post about his grandma. He was like, to be successful, you do not need to be famous. My grandmother was one of the most successful people I know, but because she was unknown to you, you don't think that she's successful, but she's successful. Success is consistency. It's that teacher that shows up every day and is present. It's that parent, like how my mother was, who shows up, takes you to practice, goes to work, tries to teach you right. That's success, you know? And I used to think success only was, I gotta be famous. Everyone needs to know my music. And I realized like I took for granted like the 50, 60 million views I have on my page and the comments and the 40,000 subscribers I have on my Styles Major page. I didn't, because it wasn't a million, I thought I was a failure. And like now I look back and I'm so grateful for the 16 years I spent in the music industry and the relationships I made and the fans that I got to make music for and help change their life. And it's just evolution. And even watching this, who knows if this video might get a million views, this video might have one view. Cool, man. I'm grateful that that one person watched this. Because regardless if anyone watches this or not, this is therapeutic for me to get out and talk about these things that I'm talking about. Um, yeah, and going on from that, I posted a lot of videos lately about Jelly Roll. Yeah, everyone knows, I love Jelly Roll's music for a long time, and a lot of Jelly Roll's videos, he's been getting really emotional, and Jelly is someone who I look at as well. Who, I mean, if you watch his documentary Save Me, the guy's been through a lot, and like I think he suffers as well. He talked about being bullying and not fitting in, being bullied and not fitting in. He's from Antioch, Tennessee, which is, predominantly black. So like probably feeling like an outsider and fitting in and all these things. And I don't know if that's exactly how he feels, but I know that he's a great musical talent, but a lot of people who are so driven a lot of times are actually the most insecure. And if you look at the root of a lot of people who are famous, the majority of them in the entertainment industry, even Joe Rogan talks about it, it stems from an insecurity of like not being seen or heard or from their childhood, and their parents not being around how they should. And you see Jelly Roll have this massive success, and it's driven off his talent and his skill, but also of his insecurities. And I saw a video of him the other day, like calling and crying and telling his mom that he won a Grammy, and it was like he just wanted his mom's validation because if people don't know his story, like his mom was really checked out for a lot of his life because of her own mental illness and addiction, and I can recognize that myself. I think a lot of us can recognize that if we had a parent that was kind of unavailable. It's like he has all the fans in the world, and all he wants is his mom to congratulate him and say, son, I'm proud of you, And so, Jelly Roll's getting a lot of talk right now because his speech to Congress, and I've posted a lot of shorts on it, and I mean, I support it 100%. I think it's beautiful to see someone at his level of fame to speak out and take accountability for his actions and his drug dealing and trying to be a part of it and change. And I know he still struggles with his own addiction and mental health, but he's trying to make a difference. Uh, so that's something that's pretty cool that's going on. And, there definitely needs to be change. Fentanyl is killing tons of innocent people. If you watch channels like Texas Pictures documentaries, which I love, there's a lot of stories of fentanyl poisoning of children, of people who really shouldn't be dying from a drug overdose. Kids being at school and wanting to smoke some weed or take a pill that they think is something else, and there's fentanyl powder in it, uh, and them dying. I've heard that story so much, and to see these parents so heartbreaking, I'm not even going to pretend like I know what it's like to lose a child because I don't, and I don't have a kid yet. And but I've known people, I know moms who've lost their sons, and it's insane the type of pain they go through, and I can only imagine, and I would never want to experience that. And yeah, there just needs to be some serious change in our country and around the world because this shit is not sustainable, but we got to change it at the root. We got to change it at the root. We got to get better programs, better governmental funding for programs that could truly treat these dual diagnoses. Because a lot of these people out here addicted to fentanyl, they need some serious help. We need to have better resources. We need to have um, better protection and harm reduction. Uh, there's a lot that needs to be changed, and it starts with the government, and it starts with funding, and it starts with laws, and and rehabilitating the people. Um, I know in our society, there's a lot of people who don't give a shit, and that's cool for them, but that's not going to really solve the problem. So that's all I wanted to talk about on there. Other than that, there's a high incidence of cocaine laced fentanyl right now, and I've been watching stories lately that are just heartbreaking of people dying of fentanyl overdoses, thinking they're doing blow. Uh, Watched a story of a guy. He was like a big time, graduated college, hot shot lawyer type kid, goes down to Florida to do a reunion with his like frat brothers or whatever, and tells his dad, hey, they're not going to party too hard. And the story's crazy. Like they were doing blow the whole night, everything's good. And then a friend comes back with some blow, probably questionable. Even he didn't know it had fentanyl in it. He takes a line, passes out. The next guy takes the line, like you got five dudes passed out, but only one of them passed away from the poisoning. And it's just like imagine that. Like I can only imagine. Like I mean, I've done cocaine hundreds of times, and I only did it for about 4 years, and I've obviously been clean off it for a while now. But that was a fear of mine. I actually got test strips at one point last year. I mean, 2 years ago, and but like most people don't, and I can only imagine the horror of being there with my friends and just like hitting a couple lines and just seeing like people that you love and care about just drop dead when like when you're just trying to have a good time. And it's crazy watching these stories and seeing like uh, I mean this happened like there was those famous people in LA, a comedian or whatever, where they're in a big huge LA mansion and the same thing. Five people hit a line and you just walk in and there's five people passed out. Like that's a fucking horror scene, man. Like, and to think about all the people and the families protect, like all the families affected, and those people that had children. I read a story of some Hispanic friends. Same thing. They were just trying to hit a line or whatever, and like all five of them dead, and they had jobs and had kids, and it's just like it's those types of situations where you question God. It's like why did this have to happen? Like and these aren't even people I know, but just trying to walk in their shoes and understand like what it's like for their family. And from watching Texas Pictures documentaries, like you see the destruction. I've lost my aunt to fentanyl poisoning. Myself, my dad's addicted to it. I've lost people to alcohol cirrhosis. Like it's really heartbreaking. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I'm gonna go ahead and close this Friday's podcast. I hope everyone's having a great Friday. Uh, Understand that you are loved. Someone's watching out there for you in the spiritual world. Uh, just try to make today the best day possible because you don't know how many days you got left. God bless y'all. Take care.